That said, those of you on YouTube, Rumble, Twitter, Facebook, remember I only need about 25 minutes on those channels. The full episode is always on Epoch TV, epochtv.com. So be sure to join us there. And that said, folks, let's jump into it. So first off, let's talk about what's happening with the unidentified flying craft, or flying objects, I don't know what to call them at this point. Everyone's calling them UFOs. Frankly, who knows? A UFO is merely an unidentified flying object, and so anything we cannot identify would fall into the category of UFO, and does not necessarily mean aliens or anything like that. But let's talk about what's happening with it, because that's actually not what I'm concerned about. My concern is the sudden escalation. There has been a sudden escalation in aggressiveness, and most importantly, military aggressiveness. And we're not being told why there's this sudden escalation. We're not being given a reason for it. But let's go over the basic news on this. Reuters had this story, and there's actually been an update since, which I'll give you all. It says, U.S. shoots down unidentified cylindrical object over Canada. It says a U.S. F-22 fighter jet shot down an unidentified cylindrical object over Canada on Saturday, the second such incident in as many days as North America appeared on edge following a week-long Chinese spy balloon saga that drew the global spotlight. Separately, the U.S. military also scrambled fighter jets in Montana to investigate a radar anomaly that triggered a brief federal closure of airspace. And there's something very strange that happened in Hawaii as well, which sounds like this, a radar anomaly. There was weird green lasers in the sky, but let's go into this a bit more. It says those aircraft did not identify any object or correlate the radar hits. Something very strange happening. The North American Aerospace Defense Command, NORAD, said in a statement. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau first announced Saturday's shoot-down over the northern Yukon Territory, saying Canadian forces would recover and analyze the wreckage. Canadian Defense Minister Anita Ananda declined to speculate about the origin of the object, which she said was cylindrical in shape. She stopped short of calling it a balloon, but said it was smaller than the Chinese spy balloon that shot down off South Carolina's coast a week ago, though similar in appearance. And since this happened, another aircraft, we don't know what it was shot down, and they're saying it was octagonal in shape. So we have a spherical one shot down, and now an octagonal one, like more of a shoe, like the octagon, right? It's weird. Now, to me, aside from the possibility of an alien invasion, which I think is everyone's kind of joking about, there is actually something pretty serious with this. What we're watching right now is sudden escalation, and in particular, sudden military escalation. It's typically it's relatively normal for countries to invade each other's airspaces. You often hear about Japan scrambling jets against Chinese aircraft. Both Russia and China actually very often go into Canadian airspace. It's relatively normal. There's a couple reasons you would do this. One of the main reason typically is you're doing intel gathering. Intelligence gathering is typically you want to see the command and control protocols of a country. And so you would fly an aircraft, for example, into their airspace. You'd see how long does it take for them to respond. What is the protocol of response, like, in terms of like who spots it, who do they alert, who reacts, what airbase deploys what asset. For example, they scramble fighter jets to escort it out. What is the protocol? Where do they escort them to? Blah, blah, blah. And that's basically what they do. And this type of information is very useful if there ever was a real incident of war, or if you actually wanted to fly fighter jets and do an airstrike on key targets in a country beginning a war. A lot of countries do these types of things because they just want to basically kind of penetration test a nation. Now, what's different between now and what normally happens is normally they don't shoot down those aircraft. Normally they're not actually firing shots and downing craft because That would get into the areas of what could constitute a war. Typically, countries don't want to escalate to that point. What we're watching now is countries escalating to that point, suggesting we may be in the early stages of an actual shooting war. Now, that being said, Chuck Schumer said this. He said the latest flying objects shot down were likely balloons. And so, although, again, everyone's saying UFOs, little green men, take it for what it's worth. This is Chuck Schumer, but he's saying they were likely balloons, suggesting that this is the U.S. and Canada basically downing more of these Chinese spy aircraft. It says the U.S. believes that the flying objects shot down over North American airspace on Friday and Saturday were balloons, according to Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer. Washington has been high alert since its military destroyed a suspected Chinese spy balloon earlier this month. While he didn't say specifically that the two latest objects were Chinese, Mr. Schumer told ABC on Sunday that Beijing was likely using a crew of balloons that had probably been all over the world, which we're hearing now. There's been another one spotted, for example, in Costa Rica, which actually the CCP admitted to. Responding to queries about Schumer's remarks, a spokesperson for the U.S. Department of Defense said the latest two objects did not closely resemble the original balloon, which actually suggests it's something else, which is pretty important for me at least. And they say they were much smaller, again, as we noted. 3 objects have been shot down. It's been 1 more now. Why does this matter? Now, this could mean one of 2 things, as far as I'm concerned. On one side, it could mean that basically the United States and Canada have enacted a zero-tolerance policy for the Chinese Communist Party basically violating national sovereignty by flying spy balloons over our territory. The other side of it would be that basically after assessing the downed air balloon, there was something of deep enough concern to make them very rapidly enact, basically defensive regions, no-go zones in terms of airspace, and to begin launching a very aggressive military counterattack on any flying objects that are of foreign nature in our airspace. So it's one of 2 things, in other words. Either it's politics and maintaining national sovereignty, or there was something deeply concerning enough that we are not being told about that would justify such a large-scale escalation without having the verbal pushback you would expect from the first option here, to me suggesting there's something actually bigger going on that we're not being told about. Let me show you a bit more on this. And then, folks, we're going to go also to the train derailment. We're also going to go in the leak of gas, poisonous gas into the sky. We're also going to go today into what happened with the Nord Stream pipeline. And it turns out Biden looks like he destroyed the Nord Stream pipeline, which would be an act of war against both Russia and possibly Germany.